Welcome back to Gene and Roger Talk Movies. We kind of have lied once again to everybody. We were going to do that Hand movie, whatever it's called. Talk to Me, I think it is.
Yeah, it's in the theaters now.
Yeah, we couldn't get to the theater to see the dang thing. So
Didn't make it.
Right. Welcome to our world, right? So we are doing Saw today. Came out October 29th.
Yeah, I think, interject right there.
Yeah.
I think if you listen to our show, I think we always say what movie we're going to watch and then report on for the following week. But don't ever listen to that because I don't think we've ever actually done it.
No, we've done it a few times, but
Most of the times we say, oh, we're going to watch a movie, and then the next week comes around, we're reviewing an entirely different movie.
yeah, that's why I always say, Gene, what are we doing next? And we just make something
We
up.
just make it up.
But
We
anyway,
have no
Saw
idea.
came out October 29th, 2004. James Wan directed, of course. This was the movie that set him on the pathway of being Mr. Horror.
Well, made him a ton of money as well as a lot of horror movies are very profitable. That's why a lot of them were made.
This thing was under $1 million, I'm sure, budget-wise. And,
1.2 million.
yeah, and
This particular movie made 103 million. But the whole Saw series is approaching $1 billion with a B.
right. Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, Gene, because I'm excited that we're talking about the original Saw, because a lot of people who think of Saw, they're really confusing it with what goes on in the other ones, where it becomes much more about the elaborate death sequences and things like that. And so it was nice to revisit the original and remember, oh yeah, it was a much different idea and movie going on here. But Gene, initial thoughts on Saw?
Yeah, Saw, it's an interesting idea. Some kind of torture chamber has been constructed for these two guys. Adam is his name, and what's the other guy? Lawrence. Yeah. And it's like somebody who's on like a moralistic crusade. It seems to teach people a lesson. You know, he gets compromised people and he puts them in situations in which they have to kill or mutilate themselves or mutilate somebody else in order for them to see the value in their lives and get better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is ridiculous because I think it ignores one fundamental thing or aspect of psychology, or healing, I should say, is that nobody gets any better unless they want to. They have to want to get better on the inside. It has to be their decision. You can't put somebody in a fantastical situation, life or death situation, and say either change and recognize the beauty in life, or you're going to get your leg cut off. You know, I mean, the person could get their leg cut off, or maybe they survived the situation. But because the impetus didn't come from within them, they're still not going to change. So I think the whole foundational aspect of this movie is just completely flawed. You know, but does the movie well put together, and does this movie have surprises? Yeah, it's good. It's surprising, but you know, horror movies, it's scary. I don't think this movie is really scary at all. It's super interesting. It's super entertaining. You know, and I've watched some of the other movies, and yeah, Roger's correct. Some of the other movies, they get more into the mechanics and the machinery of a person. Then they have to solve these puzzles in order to not be their jaws ripped off or get decapitated or whatever. You know, or like, was it Danny Wahlberg? Was it Saw 3 or 4?
He's in one of them.
Yeah, his head gets crushed by these ice. You know, so it's all about people who are in desperate situations. They have to figure these puzzles out.
Well, but I want
to
to take it down a tiny bit of a different road here, because my favorite scene in Saw is the sequence where Cary Elwes, he's the main doctor. You may remember him from Princess Bride. I remember him from this movie, of course. But
yeah, I was watching. I totally forgot that this guy was in it because I saw this movie like a decade ago.
Right.
And then you watch this movie and it's like, dude, that's the guy from Princess Bride. What in the heck is he doing in this thing?
Yeah, well, he's having a grand old time, actually.
Yeah, and he made a ton of money, of course. And then also later on, Danny Glover's in this thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, didn't you make enough money from all those like Lethal Weapon movies?
Well, and of course, I remember him primarily from Predator 2.
You do not.
I don't. I don't. But
The movie
anyway,
was not as bad as people say. Anyway,
we're not going to be
we're not
reviewing
ever going to
Predator
review that
2.
movie.
But the scene I really like in Saw, and really which impacts me the greatest and really sets the tone for me for the entire Saw franchise, really, is Tobin Bell, who, of course, plays John, the Jigsaw Killer. He's dying from cancer.
Right.
And he's in his hospital bed there undergoing treatment. And Carrie Elways, he's got a bunch of interns coming through there.
Yeah. His name is Lawrence.
Lawrence, thank you.
Lawrence.
And he's very
Dr. Lawrence Gordon.
Very matter-of-factly just, oh, yeah, this is how the cancer's progressing. This is just another person who's going to be a victim. Just really speaking in terms that are dehumanizing, right? He doesn't care. He sees this person as just teachings for my interns here, and they're learning, and I have no compassion for this person or whatever.
But they're talking about him, and he's right there.
He's right there, right?
He's right there.
And so I love
no
how
compassion.
the Jigsaw, Tobin Bell's character, I'm looking at him as, you know what? I'm in this no-win situation here. I must face death, and I'm going to die no matter what I do to solve this problem. You know what? I'm going to get you into a similar situation, but I'm going to give you an opportunity to do something you maybe don't want to do. And let's see how desperate you will be to actually save your own life. And that's what I really like about the Saw movies, is the motivation of the Jigsaw Killer. He legitimately wants to get revenge on people who are treating their life as flippantly, I guess is a way to say it, where
right, there's one woman who's a drug abuser. There's a lot of this movie is told with flashbacks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's probably 3/5 of the movie you're in a flashback.
Right, which is good storytelling for this particular film, because you learn, because all the characters end up conveying upon one another right at the end. And so you've got Danny Glover as this police officer. He's got his little buddy, his partner there.
Sing,
and they're trying to track down the Jigsaw Killer. Danny Glover eventually assumes it's the Carrie Elways character who's the Jigsaw Killer. Of course, he's not. During the course of the film, Danny Glover's partner gets killed in this elaborate booby trap kind of thing. Which then causes him to kind of go off the rails a little bit.
He loses his mind.
Yeah, he ends up
off the police force.
But he is still all in on trying to prove that the Dr. Gordon is actually the Jigsaw Killer. So he's got him under surveillance. He's hired this guy to surveil him. Mm-hmm. He's across the street, it looks like, got his camera up, and he's got all these, I'm a crazy person. He's got all the newspaper clippings and all that. And so all of this is going to converge at the end, but really the primary set piece for this whole film is two guys, this one guy who you don't know, and then the doctor waking up, chained from on one side or the other of this decrepit bathroom-looking place.
Yeah, like a shower house or shower, yeah.
Yeah, and there's what appears to be a corpse who has committed suicide because there's blood all over
the middle,
the floor.
But they can't reach this guy because they're chained by the ankles to these drain pipes.
Yeah, and so the one character, his name is Adam. You learn later that he's the photographer that Danny Glover had hired to track down and take a bunch of compromising photos of the doctor who's also there. But everything from that point on is basically flashbacks, giving you the backstory of how everybody got to this
and the
point.
doctor is compromised, that he's having an affair, it looks like, with one of his interns, right? And so, and his relationship with his wife is extremely poor. Yeah, it's just on the verge of ending.
Right, and that was another scene I kind of like too, because they do maybe 1.5 minutes worth of film with the family dynamics there. But I did like the scene where the daughter is like, Daddy, are you going to leave us? And he's straight up lying to her, like, no, of course, why would I do that?
Because he's leaving that night to go see his mistress.
Right.
And so he's lying to his own daughter.
And it's interesting though, because then there is that interplay between the doctor and his wife, and she has just had it with him.
Right.
But his behavior is almost like everything's fine. We'll talk about this later, but everything's fine. I'm perfectly happy. And it was an interesting dynamic where he's not even able to realize what he's doing is destroying this family, right?
Well, I think he is treating his family just the same way that he treats his patients. His whole life is all about him.
Mm-hmm.
He's become the complete narcissist, and people around him are not even really human. They're just like set pieces.
Right.
I just move them around, and so, yeah. So part of this is his punishment.
Right, and that's the thing is.
Well, I think with the goal to turn him around.
Right, and that seems to have happened there at the end when his wife and daughter are being threatened with death, and he ends up doing something very horrible to get out of the situation that he's in.
Yes.
Basically, if you haven't seen the film, these two guys are chained to these pipes within this bathroom area, and they discover this package left by Jigsaw that's got 2 hacksaws in there, but amazingly enough, the hacksaws are flimsy enough or dull enough to where the only way you really could escape is to saw through your own foot.
Right, because they try very hard to saw through the locks or the metal of the chains, and no, that's not going to happen.
Right, and then the one character, Adam, who is the photographer who's chained down there, then is talking to Dr. Gordon, and then Dr. Gordon relates all of these flashback stories of his understanding of the Jigsaw killer, because he's like, oh, we've been captured by Jigsaw. Well, how do you know anything about this guy? Well, I've been accused as being him. And so you've got kind of this nice dynamic going on where what's real and what's not real. Is he actually maybe the killer? Is this other guy the killer? Is everyone trying to pull the wool over everyone else's eyes? And so it plays out kind of, if you've seen a lot of horror movies, especially Italian giallo movies, Saw kind of fits a little bit in there with the mystery and kind of trying to unravel what's really going on. And then, of course, the horrific, graphic, violent set pieces and things like that. There are a few in this, but not as many and as graphic as it goes along in the Saw series. But I did enjoy the you've got to crawl through all of this razor wire to get out.
Yeah, they show previous examples of...
Yeah.
They show examples of other victims. Yeah.
Yeah, because they do a whole flashback of Danny Glover and investigating and trying to figure things out and really playing up how he gets insane.
Yeah.
Or really obsessed, I guess, with solving the case. But Gene, were you had you seen this movie before? You've seen it before, right?
Yeah, it was like a decade. It's a long time ago. So I've just forgotten a lot of the details. I remembered, of course we're going to give everything away, but the guy whose body is in the middle and there's lots of blood around, but he is not actually dead.
Right.
Which makes me think the whole time, can't you just see that guy breathing? He's just lying there like that still. But anyway, so at the very, very end of the movie, he gets up. So that's definitely a surprise. And so, it's one of those movies where you exist in parallel with the characters because they're discovering their world at the same time you're discovering, and so you're kind of going along with them. So you feel tied in with them a little bit. Although the movie producers go out of their way to make these very unsympathetic characters. Although I kind of liked the Adam character. I like this guy. He's just a photographer trying to make his way in the world, and so he's just getting paid and, he's got to eat, right? Well, is it really that bad?
Well, and Jigsaw had set it up because each of the characters trapped in the bathroom had a little an audio tape. And, of course, in the corpse's hand is this tape player, so they have to try to get that tape player, and then they're playing the tape. And the tape for Adam is like, you need to do everything you can to live or something like that.
Yeah, you're a voyeur. He calls him a voyeur.
And then the tape for the doctor is, well, you need to kill Adam or I'm going to kill your family.
Right.
And so that sets
gives him
up
till
that.
6 o'clock, and it started. It doesn't say if it's at night or morning, but 6 o'clock, and it was like 11 o'clock.
Right. And that's the other thing with the Saw films. There's always like a time deadline. So it's not like, I can think a long time about how to get out of this trap. No, I've got to totally get through it right now. Because I think the razor wire trap was like 3 minutes or something
Yeah,
like that,
yeah,
you know, so
yeah.
you're having to move and get through it really fast.
But it's interesting, the time runs out. And did he shoot at him? Because he gets one of his gifts is a bullet.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a bullet or a gun laying on the floor, again by the quote-unquote corpse in the middle. So he puts a bullet in. But does he shoot him by the deadline, or does he shoot him?
No, it was after. So
He shoots him after the deadline. So in a way, he's ignoring the own deadline
mm-hmm.
to save his own family,
Yeah,
which I thought was interesting, because if you're abiding by this guy's rules, then you should have shot him before 6 o'clock.
right. And that was the other interesting thing, because then it turns out that Jigsaw had actually had someone else under his spell,
Yep.
tormenting the mom and the daughter, who is now rushing back to the bathroom kidnap area to actually finish them off. And at one point he says, that's the rules. It's the rules.
Right, it's the rules.
And so I really like that, how, and as the Saw movies progress with the Jigsaw character, Tobin Bell's character, when he's not around, it kind of changes. But when his character is around, yeah, if you do what I say you need to do, you will live. You know, if you carve this key out of this person that I've sewed it into or whatever, you're going to live, you know.
Right.
And it's just the whole live or die thing. What are you going to choose? How much do you really value your own life, and what will you do to ensure it continues?
Yeah.
And so he's got this twisted morality of, no, if you do what you need to, you'll live.
It's super twisted. However, one girl who survives, she had this mechanical thing on her head, and it was going to just snap her jaw open and destroy her skull. But she gets it off, and she actually stabs the guy who's alive, by the way. Takes the key out of his intestine, unlocks it. But then she says later on, she's being interrogated by police. She says something like, I learned my lesson or something.
I believe it was, he saved me.
Yeah, he saved me. Yeah, yeah, right, very good.
And I think that kind of goes back to, I mean, you were mentioning how people have to change before they really can change.
Yeah, I think there has to be some decision somewhere.
Right, but I think sometimes we talk about you have to hit rock bottom before you start making serious change. Mm-hmm. Well, how much more rock bottom can you get than having this reverse bear trap attached to your face, right?
Reverse. I think they call it a reverse bear trap.
And then
so that's rock bottom.
And so it's an interesting, that's why I just find the Tobin Bell character just interesting, his motivations for doing this. He's dying from cancer. He's being treated just like a number by these doctors, these professionals who are supposed to be caring for you. And so he kind of just is like, you know what? I'm going to put you now in a life or death situation and see how little you care.
Yeah. But to do that just because doctors don't treat you well, I mean, his life was no good to begin with. It had to be.
Well, he's obviously incredibly inventive, incredibly intelligent.
He's got a huge funding source somewhere.
Mm-hmm. He's like the reverse Batman.
yeah, exactly. But maybe that's the thing. Is like he's finding ways to get people to rock bottom, and hopefully people will change then. But I don't know. I really think you've got to want to change. To change, you have to want it. And I don't know if you can force somebody to do that. I just don't know.
Right.
It just doesn't seem like that would work.
Yeah, and, the Tobin Bell character of Jigsaw, he's in the first 3, and then I believe at the end of the third one he finally has died from cancer. And then the Saw series completely goes off the rails with other stuff going on. But I actually like all of them. The first 7, I think it is.
Yeah,
right?
It's 7, yeah.
I think so. Well, there's like 2 more. There was one with Chris Rock called Spiral, and then there was one called Jigsaw. Not a big fan of those, but that first 6 or 7, maybe it is, they really try hard to tie all of the movies together, so the plots get more and more convoluted and crazy as they go. So it's kind of fun if you've got a really boring weekend and you just want to watch all the original ones one after the other. You can see how
this was available on Prime, for free on Prime, and so I don't know. The other Saws might be available too. I didn't really investigate that.
Well, and of course, one of them, and I think it was maybe 6, was in 3D, which was awesome.
Nice.
Gene, anything more about Saw?
Saw is interesting. It's again, it's a big franchise in the horror movie genre. So if you like horror movies, I think you've got to see Saw.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's one of the, again, a movie that's been incredibly successful. And so, I mean, it does have its elements. Again, it's if you're looking for something that scares you or creeps you out, makes you like maybe doubt your own choices. I don't know if it does that. It definitely is the deformation of the human form for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this one almost maybe fits more into that disgust category we talked about. How much can you take?
Yeah, in a way this fits really good well with Human Centipede we did last week. This is pretty disgusting. Like one guy, Adam, he has to put his hand in a dirty toilet,
Right.
to try to retrieve.
Well, actually, that was kind of funny because there's like this cryptic note or message like, oh, look to the heart, and there's this heart drawn on the toilet. And so immediately, well, stick your hand in that toilet.
Yeah, stick your hand in the toilet.
And he's digging around, and it's nasty and nasty. But then it was really, no, it's in the tank at the top, which is perfectly
right. And then you just open up the lid, toilet, and it's right there.
Yeah, so that was probably the only humor in the entire film.
That movie's pretty disgusting.
No, it's good. And Tobin Bell is quite the horror icon now for his portrayal of Jigsaw. And it's interesting because he's only on screen in a speaking capacity for about 35 seconds.
His on screen is minuscule.
Yeah,
and you hear his voice, more, but it's not very much.
And just how he parlayed that into, he's a horror icon right up there with Pinhead from Hellraiser and Michael Myers and all those other guys. So good for him. And actually, Saw X is coming out September 29th or something. And I am a little bit excited about this, and maybe I can convince Gene to do this one when it comes out to the theaters. But there's Saw 1, and then there's Saw 2. This movie, Saw X, takes place right after the events of this film. And my understanding of this film. And so my understanding is he actually goes to Mexico to get treatment for his cancer, but it's this new revolutionary treatment. But it's really just one of those fake healing doctor guys that does some shenanigans,
scamming his money, and so taking money from the rich American.
Yeah, and so you're trying to take Jigsaw's money. Well, now I'm going to be giving it back to you now. Right?
All right.
So it has the potential maybe to be really, really cool.
We'll see.
So
but not till September.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with that one. But Gene, what are we going to attempt to do the Hand movie next week? What are we thinking?
I don't know. Like, is there another movie that's kind of falls in this genre of like really disgusting?
Well, of course
we did Human Centipede. We did Saw. What could follow after? You mentioned Pinhead.
Well, that's Hellraiser.
That's Hellraiser. That's a different kind of horror movie.
Well, we could do Hellraiser if you want. That certainly is. And
no, we should probably we'll do the A24.
Okay,
it's
so
in the theaters now.
You're right. Don't believe us, but we're going to probably do the Hand movie next week.
Yeah.
Anyway, Gene, anything final?
No, we've talked this out.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Thanks for tuning in. Catch us next week when we do something. Yeah. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.